The sharp crack of Brandon Hayes's knuckles against the wooden library table made Sarah Mitchell's heart skip. She didn't look up from the essay she was grading, but her hand tightened around the red pen. The smell of old books mixed with his expensive cologne, a scent that had become a warning signal over the past 2 weeks. "Miss Mitchell." His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. "We need to talk." Sarah forced herself to meet his gaze. At 17. Brandon stood 6'3", 220 pounds of muscle earned through years of football training. His Lincoln High Letterman jacket stretched across shoulders that had bulldozed through defensive lines since freshman year. But it wasn't his size that made her pulse quicken, it was the cold calculation in his blue eyes. If you're feeling that rush of what's going to happen next, hit that like button. It really helps more people discover these stories. And if you want to share where you're watching from, drop it in the comments below. For those who want to support more stories like this one, there's a thanks button right under this video. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps me bring you more inspiring tales of courage and standing up for what's right. Thank you for being here. Now, let's see what happens when push comes to shove. Office hours are Monday through Thursday. Brandon. She kept her voice steady, professional. You can schedule. His palm slammed down on her stack of papers, essays scattered across the table like startled birds. I said now. The library was empty except for Ashley Thompson, the librarian, shelving books 3 aisles away. Sarah could hear the squeaky wheel of her cart, growing fainter. They were alone in the study corner, surrounded by towering shelves that blocked them from view. Sarah stood slowly, smoothing her pencil skirt. At 5'4", she had to tilt her head back to look at him. 24 years old, fresh out of her teaching certification, newest faculty member at Lincoln High. Everything about her screamed vulnerable, from her slight frame to her soft voice to the way her hands trembled slightly as she gathered the scattered papers. But Brandon didn't know about Tuesday nights at Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy. He didn't know about the brown belt folded carefully in her gym bag. He didn't know that beneath the floral blouse and cardigan, muscle memory from 6 years of training waited like a coiled spring. I know what you did, Brandon said, stepping closer. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his jaw. That report you filed, big mistake. Sarah's mind flashed back to last Thursday. 32 essays on the Great Gatsby, and one that stood out not for its insight, but for its perfection. Too perfect. A quick Google search had confirmed her suspicions. Brandon Hayes had purchased his essay from a premium writing service. Word for word plagiarism, down to the peculiar interpretation of the green light as capitalist optimism. She'd stared at her computer screen for an hour that night, knowing what she had to do and dreading it. Brandon Hayes wasn't just any student. His father, Marcus Hayes, had played 8 seasons in the NFL before becoming Denver's most successful car dealership owner. The Hayes family name was etched on the stadium scoreboard, the library wing, the new science lab. Their donations kept Lincoln High's athletic program among the state's best. But Sarah had submitted the academic integrity report anyway, because that's what teachers did. That's what was right. I followed protocol, Sarah said, proud that her voice didn't shake. Plagiarism is a serious... Plagiarism, Brandon laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think you're going to ruin my future over some stupid essay? You know what's riding on this semester, my GPA, my scholarship to Colorado State. He moved around the table, blocking her path to the main aisle. Sarah's training kicked in automatically. She shifted her weight to the balls of her feet. hands relaxed at her sides. Control the distance. Stay calm. Breathe. Your academic performance is your responsibility, she said. I'm just doing my job. Your job? His face flushed red. Your job is to teach, not play detective. You've been here, what? 2 months. You don't understand how things work at Lincoln. Sarah remembered her first day, walking into room 201 with such hope. The students had tested her immediately, talking over her soft voice, ignoring her assignments, betting on how long she'd last. The previous English teacher had quit mid-semester. They'd informed her gleefully. Nervous breakdown, some said. Others whispered darker rumors. But Sarah had persevered. She'd won them over with patience and genuine care, staying late to tutor struggling students, bringing homemade cookies during exam week, sharing her own struggles with literature when she was their age. By October, even the troublemakers were participating in class discussions. Everyone except Brandon Hayes. He'd sat in the back row, football teammates flanking him like bodyguards, never disruptive enough to warrant discipline. But his presence was a constant weight. The way he'd stare at her during lectures, the way other students would glance at him before answering questions, as if seeking permission, the way conversations died when he entered a room. I understand perfectly, Sarah said now, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. You thought you could cheat and get away with it. You were wrong. Brandon's jaw clenched. For a moment, the mask slipped, and she saw something raw and ugly beneath the all-American athlete facade. You have no idea who you're messing with. My father? Your father doesn't control my grade book. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Brandon's hands curled into fists at his sides. Sarah watched his shoulders tense, recognizing the signs of escalating aggression. In BJJ, they called it telegraphing the subtle shifts that preceded an attack. Ashley's cart squeaked somewhere in the distance, too far away. You're going to regret this, Brandon said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. I promise you that. He turned and walked away, each footstep deliberate and heavy. Sarah didn't move until she heard the library doors close behind him. Then her knees gave out, and she sank into the chair, hands shaking as the adrenaline hit. She'd stood up to him. She'd won this round. But the look in his eyes before he left, that wasn't defeat. That was a promise. The next morning, Sarah arrived to find Principal Robert Williams waiting by her classroom door. At 55, Williams looked every year of his 3 decades in education. His gray suit was impeccable, but dark circles under his eyes suggested a sleepless night. Sarah, could we talk in my office? Her stomach dropped. The hallway was filling with students, and she caught several watching them with interest. News traveled fast at Lincoln High. Williams's office smelled like coffee and old leather. Diplomas and awards covered one wall. Photos with distinguished alumni on another. Sarah had sat in this same chair during her job interview, full of enthusiasm and dreams about shaping young minds. I received a call from Marcus Hayes last night, Williams began, settling heavily into his chair. He's concerned about the plagiarism accusation. It's not an accusation, Sarah said. I have proof. The essay service website. The exact match. Williams held up a hand. I've reviewed your report. It's thorough. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But we need to consider the bigger picture here. The bigger picture. The Hayes family has been part of Lincoln High for generations. Marcus played here. His brothers. Now, Brandon. They've contributed So we ignore academic integrity for donors. The words came out sharper than she intended. Williams's face tightened. That's not what I'm saying. But perhaps there's room for interpretation. Brandon claims he used the website for research, not to copy. Maybe he didn't understand proper citation. He submitted someone else's work as his own, word for word. Sarah, Williams leaned forward, his voice paternal. You're new to teaching. Sometimes we need to pick our battles. Brandon's already facing enormous pressure: football, college applications, his father's expectations. One mistake shouldn't derail his future. Sarah thought about her own high school years in small-town Nebraska. She'd been the skinny girl with second-hand clothes and a love for books. The athletes had ruled her school too. Their transgressions forgiven. Their victims silenced. She'd promised herself that when she became a teacher, she'd be different. She'd be fair. What about my other students? She asked. The ones who write their own essays, who follow the rules. What message does it send if Brandon gets special treatment? William sighed. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm asking you to consider all factors before making this official. The Academic Integrity Board meets Friday. You have until then to reassess. Sarah left his office feeling hollow. In the hallway, students parted around her, whispers following in her wake. She caught fragments. Hayes is pissed. She's done for. Should have minded her own business. During third period, while discussing symbolism in Fitzgerald, she noticed the empty seat in the back row. Brandon's absence felt more ominous than his presence ever had. At lunch, Ashley Thompson found her in the teacher's lounge. The librarian was in her mid-30s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and an uncanny ability to appear when needed most. Rough morning. Ashley sat beside her, offering half a homemade sandwich. You could say that. Sarah picked at her salad, appetite gone. Brandon Hayes. It wasn't a question. Sarah looked up sharply. How did you... Honey, I've worked here 12 years. I've seen this play before. Ashley lowered her voice. Different actors, same script. Star athlete breaks rules. Teacher reports it. Pressure mounts. Teacher backs down, or... Ashley glanced around, ensuring they were alone. Rebecca Chen taught calculus, caught Brandon's older brother Michael cheating 2 years ago, stuck to her guns despite the pressure. Her car tires got slashed, dead rat in her desk drawer, anonymous calls at night. She lasted 2 weeks before requesting a transfer. Sarah's blood chilled. The administration didn't do anything. No proof linking it to the Hayes family. Security cameras conveniently malfunctioned. Witnesses suddenly couldn't remember details. Ashley touched Sarah's arm gently. I'm not saying you should back down. Just be careful. The Hayes boys don't handle rejection well. That afternoon, Sarah's creative writing elective felt different. Students who usually chatted before class sat silent, stealing glances at her. Madison Foster, student council president and one of her brightest students, lingered after dismissal. Miss Mitchell, Madison clutched her notebook, knuckles white. About Brandon. I can't discuss other students by grades, Madison. I know. The 17-year-old looked older suddenly, weighted by secrets. He's not going to let this go. He never does. And his friends, Kyle Anderson especially. They'll do anything he says. Madison, if you know about specific threats or... No. Madison stepped back quickly. I don't know anything. I'm just saying, maybe you should park closer to the building. And don't stay late alone. And maybe some battles aren't worth fighting. She fled before Sarah could respond. That evening, Sarah sat in her apartment, laptop open to the plagiarism report. One click would submit it to the Academic Integrity Board. One click would make it official, would start a process even Principal Williams couldn't stop. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Smart teachers know when to be flexible. Dumb ones learn the hard way. No signature, but she didn't need one. Sarah stared at the message. Anger building. They thought they could intimidate her. They thought she was weak because she was young, female, new. She hit submit on the report. The next morning, Wednesday. Sarah found her assigned parking spot occupied by a massive black pickup truck. Brandon's truck. She had to park in the visitor section. A 10-minute walk from the building in freezing November air. Small intimidation tactics. She could handle it, but throughout the day, the pressure mounted. Students whispered conversations that died when she appeared. Teachers gave her sympathetic looks, but kept their distance. Even the cafeteria workers seemed to avoid eye contact. During her free period, she found a note slipped under her classroom door. "You can still fix this. Last chance." Sarah crumpled it and threw it in the trash. She had 2 more days until the academic board meeting. 2 more days to stand firm. After school, she headed to the library to gather more evidence for her case. The setting sun cast long shadows through the tall windows, and the usual after-school crowd was absent. Even Ashley was nowhere to be seen. Sarah made her way to the computer section, planning to screenshot the plagiarism website before it potentially disappeared. She'd learned to document everything, a habit born from years of training in precise technique. In BJJ, details mattered: grip placement, weight distribution, timing. The same principle applied here. She was deep in concentration when she heard the main doors close. The automatic lock engaged with a soft click that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. "Library's closed," a familiar voice called out. Sarah's head snapped up. Brandon stood by the entrance. Kyle Anderson beside him. Both wore their football jackets, hoods up despite being indoors. The security camera in the corner, she noticed, had been turned to face the wall. "Ashley left early," Brandon said, moving closer with casual menace. "Family emergency. Funny how those happen sometimes." Sarah stood slowly, mind calculating distances and exits. The main doors were blocked. The emergency exit was on the far wall, past rows of shelves. Her phone was in her bag, 3 tables away. "We just want to talk," Kyle said, but his grin suggested otherwise. Where Brandon was controlled fury, Kyle was barely leashed violence, smaller than his friend but meaner, with a reputation for dirty plays that somehow never drew penalties. "Then talk," Sarah said. Proud, her voice remained steady. Brandon approached until only a study table separated them. This close. She could see the vein pulsing in his temple, the white-knuckled grip he had on control. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he asked, "teaching us about integrity and honor. You don't know anything about the real world." "I know cheating is wrong." "Wrong," Brandon laughed bitterly. "My father built an empire from nothing. You know how? By doing whatever it took, by being stronger than everyone else, by not letting anyone stand in his way." He moved around the table, and Sarah mirrored him, maintaining distance. Her bare feet would have better grip than her heels, but kicking them off would signal fear. Not yet. "That's not strength," she said. "That's bullying." "Call it whatever you want." Brandon's voice dropped. "But it works, and you're about to learn that lesson." Kyle had circled to her other side, classic pincer movement. Sarah's instructor's voice echoed in her mind. When outnumbered, create angles, use the environment. Stay calm. The report's already filed, she said. Hurting me won't change that. Hurt you? Brandon's eyes widened in mock innocence. We're just talking, right? Kyle, just a friendly conversation about how Miss Mitchell realized she made a mistake. How she's going to tell the board it was all a misunderstanding. I won't lie for you. Then you'll suffer for the truth. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Sarah felt her heart racing but forced her breathing to remain steady. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Just like before a match. You know what your problem is, Brandon continued, stalking closer. You think rules matter, you think fairness matters, but the only thing that matters is power. And right now, you have none. Sarah thought about all the students who'd confided in her about bullying, about pressure, about feeling powerless in a system rigged against them. She thought about Madison's fearful eyes, about Rebecca Chen's exile, about every teacher who'd chosen silence over justice. You're wrong, she said quietly. Standing up to people like you, that's real power. Brandon's face contorted with rage. In one explosive movement, he lunged forward, hand reaching for her collar. Brandon's hand closed around Sarah's collar, fingers twisting the fabric as he drove her backward. Her spine hit the bookshelf hard, and copies of Shakespeare tumbled around them like paper rain. His face was inches from hers, breath hot with rage. You think you're tough, he snarled, pushing harder. You're nothing, just another teacher who needs to learn her place. Sarah's hands found his wrist. 6 years of muscle memory kicked in before conscious thought. Her fingers wrapped around the joint in a specific grip, thumb on the inside. Fingers creating a C shape around the bones. Brandon was still talking, still threatening, not noticing the subtle shift in her stance. My father owns half this town. One phone call, and you'll never teach again. Not here, not anywhere. You hearing me? I hear you, Sarah said calmly. Too calmly. That's when Brandon noticed something was wrong. Her grip on his wrist hadn't been defensive. It was technical, precise. And her eyes, the fear was gone, replaced by something he'd never seen in a victim before. Focus. Sarah rotated her hips, dropping her weight while maintaining the grip. The wrist lock engaged like a key turning in a lock. Brandon's eyes went wide as physics betrayed him. His stronger muscles meant nothing against proper leverage applied to small joints. What are you? She stepped back and twisted. The human wrist wasn't designed to bend that direction. Brandon's cocky sneer transformed into shock. Then pain. His knees buckled as his body instinctively followed the lock to avoid injury. Let go! He dropped to one knee, then both, his free hand slapping the ground. You're breaking it. I'm controlling it, Sarah corrected, maintaining steady pressure. Big difference, something you'd understand if you knew anything about real strength. Kyle stood frozen, mouth hanging open. He'd seen Brandon level linebackers, bench press 300 pounds, intimidate grown men. But here was Miss Mitchell, 5'4", 120 pounds soaking wet, dropping their enforcer like a sack of flour. Kyle, Brandon's voice cracked with pain and humiliation. Get her off me. Kyle took a step forward, then stopped. Something in Sarah's posture warned him. She'd handled Brandon like a professional, not a lucky amateur. His street smarts, honed through years of backing Brandon's plays, screamed danger. I can't. Man, she'll mess me up too. You Coward! Tears streamed down Brandon's face now. Macho facade completely shattered. The golden boy of Lincoln High was on his knees, crying in the library. Controlled by the English teacher everyone thought was weak, Sarah leaned down slightly, keeping the lock secure. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to let go. You're going to stand up, collect your friend, and leave. The plagiarism report stays filed. You face the consequences of your actions like the adult you claim to be. Understood. You can't, my father will. She applied a fraction more pressure. Brandon yelped. Your father doesn't scare me. You don't scare me. The only thing that scares me is letting students think they can buy their way out of accountability. She paused. Now, are we understanding each other? Yes, Brandon gasped. Yes, okay, I understand. Sarah released the lock and stepped back smoothly, hands returning to a ready position. Brandon scrambled away from her, cradling his wrist. The rage in his eyes had been replaced by something else, fear mixed with disbelief. You're crazy, he said, voice shaking. You're absolutely insane. No, Sarah said. I'm a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Tuesday nights at Gracie Academy. If you ever want to learn what real strength looks like. First lessons free. Brandon struggled to his feet, face flushed with humiliation. Kyle rushed to help him, both of them backing toward the door like Sarah was a live grenade. This isn't over, Brandon said, trying to salvage some dignity. You just assaulted a student. There's no cameras, but we'll tell everyone. You'll be fired, arrested. Self-defense, a new voice said from behind the stacks. Ashley Thompson emerged, smartphone in hand. Got the whole thing on video. Hi, boys. Brandon's face went white. You can't record without permission. Public space, school property, and I'm head librarian, Ashley said cheerfully. I have every right to document incidents in my library, especially when they involve students attempting to physically intimidate faculty members. We were just talking, Kyle protested weakly. Ashley turned her phone screen toward them. On it, crystal clear, was Brandon grabbing Sarah's collar, slamming her into the bookshelf, threatening her. Then the reversal, Sarah's controlled technique. Brandon on his knees, crying. Funny how just talking looks a lot like assault, Ashley said. Now, I believe Miss Mitchell suggested you leave. Excellent advice. Brandon and Kyle fled, the library doors banging shut behind them. In the sudden silence, Sarah felt her legs shaking. The adrenaline crash hit hard, and she sank into a chair. Ashley sat beside her, putting a gentle hand on her shoulder. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in 20 years of education. Where on earth did you learn that? Lincoln, Nebraska, Sarah said, managing a weak smile. Smallest girl in school, biggest target for bullies. My dad enrolled me in BJJ when I was 18, said if I was going to change the world through teaching, I better know how to protect myself first. Smart man. Ashley pulled up the video again. This is already backed up to 3 different clouds. By the way, that little sociopath isn't wiggling out of this one. He'll claim I used excessive force. His father will hire lawyers. Honey, you used the minimum force necessary to stop an assault. I've watched enough UFC with my husband to recognize perfect technique when I see it. You could have really hurt him, but you didn't. You controlled, de-escalated, and released. Textbook self-defense. Sarah's phone buzzed. Madison Foster, OMG, everyone's talking about it. Kyle posted that you're some kind of ninja. Are you okay? Then another, and another. Within minutes, her phone was lighting up with messages from students, teachers, even parents. The story was spreading through Lincoln High's social network like wildfire. But it was the message from an unknown number that made her pause. "You have no idea what you've started. The Hayes family doesn't forgive." Ashley read it over her shoulder. "Empty threats from a wounded ego. Come on, I'll walk you to your car. And tomorrow, we're both parking right by the front door. Security cameras everywhere." That night, Sarah sat in her apartment replaying the incident. Not with regret, but with analysis. Her technique had been solid. The wrist lock applied correctly. But she'd made enemies today. Powerful ones. Her phone rang. Principal Williams. "Sarah, I just got off a very difficult call with Marcus Hayes. He's threatening to sue the school. You personally, and demanding criminal charges for assault. I was defending myself. There's video proof." "I'm aware. Ashley sent me the footage." Williams sighed heavily. "Sarah, this is becoming a circus. The school board is breathing down my neck. Parents are taking sides. Social media is exploding. Maybe it would be best if I resigned." Sarah felt steel in her spine. "Absolutely not." "I wasn't going to suggest that," Williams said, though his tone indicated otherwise. "But perhaps a temporary leave while this gets sorted out. I'll be in my classroom tomorrow morning, same as always. Brandon Hayes assaulted me, not the other way around. I won't hide like I did something wrong." The Hayes family has resources. Sarah, lawyers, connections. This could get very ugly. It already is ugly. That's exactly why I won't back down. After hanging up, Sarah made herself tea and opened her laptop. 17 emails from local media outlets requesting interviews. She ignored them all. This wasn't about fame or attention. It was about principle. Her BJJ instructor called next. Master Carlos, a 60-year-old Brazilian who'd trained since childhood. "Sarah, I saw the video. Your technique was perfect. I'm proud." "Thank you. Master Carlos, I just reacted." "No," he said firmly. "You responded with control and discipline. That boy is lucky you're one of my students. Others might have really hurt him. You teaching him lesson without damage. This is the way." The next morning, Thursday, Sarah arrived to find the parking lot buzzing with activity. News vans lined the street. Parents clustered in groups. Voices heated. Security guards, usually limited to one sleepy retiree, had tripled. Sarah parked in her newly assigned spot right next to the main entrance, under multiple cameras. Ashley's doing, no doubt, inside. The hallways felt electric. Students openly stared, some with admiration, others with uncertainty. At her classroom, a crowd had gathered. "Miss Mitchell?" A freshman girl pushed forward. "Is it true you're like a secret black belt?" "Brown belt," Sarah corrected. "And it was never a secret, just never relevant to teaching English before." "Can you teach us?" another student asked eagerly. "Self-defense. I mean, that's a conversation for administration, right now. We have Hamlet to discuss." But focusing on Shakespeare proved impossible. Every class wanted to talk about what happened, about standing up to bullies, about power dynamics. Sarah found herself leading discussions on civil disobedience, personal integrity, and the difference between violence and self-defense. Brandon was absent, but his presence loomed large. Kyle Anderson sat sullen in the back, recording everything on his phone. Sarah let him. She had nothing to hide. At lunch, Madison Foster approached her privately. "Miss Mitchell, I need to tell you something. About Brandon. about what he's done before. Sarah's blood chilled at Madison's revelations. 3 girls, 2 the previous year, 1 just last month. All had quietly transferred schools after incidents with Brandon. Always at parties, always with alcohol involved, always with family lawyers ensuring silence. Why didn't anyone report this? Madison's laugh was bitter. To who his uncle is on the school board, his father golfs with the chief of police, his family's law firm represents half the town. The girls who tried to speak up were labeled troublemakers, liars, attention seekers. Their families were threatened with lawsuits. But you have names, details. I have everything. Madison pulled out a folder. I've been documenting for months, hoping someone would finally stand up to him. When I heard what you did, Miss Mitchell, you're the first adult who didn't back down. The first one who fought back. Sarah stared at the folder. Dates, names, witness accounts. A pattern of predatory behavior enabled by wealth and power. Madison, this is evidence of serious crimes. We need to take this to the police, the same ones who made Katie Chen's assault report disappear. The administration who suggested Jessica Moore was confused about what happened at homecoming. Sarah's mind raced. The plagiarism was nothing compared to this. She'd kicked a hornet's nest, thinking it was about academic integrity, but the rot went much deeper. There has to be someone. The district superintendent, the state board, the media. The media is already here, Madison pointed out. Thanks to that video of you defending yourself. Miss Mitchell, you have their attention. People are listening. If you speak up now, with this evidence, I'd be painting an even bigger target on my back. Maybe, or maybe you'd be giving voice to all the victims who were silenced. Maybe you'd be the hero we need. That afternoon, Sarah taught with the folder locked in her desk drawer, its weight heavier than mountains. During her free period, she found 17 missed calls from unknown numbers, 3 from lawyers representing the Hayes family, 2 from school board members, 1 from the district superintendent. She was starting to return calls when Ashley burst in. Sarah, we have a problem. Brandon's here with his father. They're in Williams's office demanding your immediate termination and arrest. Through the window, Sarah could see the black Bentley in the principal's reserved spot. Marcus Hayes had come to handle things personally. 20 minutes later, her classroom phone rang. Miss Mitchell, please report to the principal's office immediately. The walk felt like heading to execution. Students peered from doorways, whispers following her steps. In the main office, secretaries avoided eye contact. Principal Williams's door was closed, but she could hear raised voices inside. She knocked. Enter. The scene inside was a study in power dynamics. Marcus Hayes dominated the room despite being seated 6'5". Built like his NFL days, wearing a suit that cost more than Sarah's monthly salary. Brandon sat beside him, wrist in a brace, face arranged in practiced victimhood. Their lawyer, a sharp-faced woman with predator eyes, had documents spread across the desk. Miss Mitchell? Marcus Hayes stood, extending a hand she didn't take. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'm sure we can resolve this like civilized people. Your son assaulted me, Sarah said simply. I defended myself. There's nothing to resolve. Marcus's friendly mask slipped for just a moment. My son is 17. You're an adult trained in combat sports. The disparity, Sarah interrupted, is that your son thought he could physically intimidate me because I'm smaller and female. He was wrong. She broke my wrist. Brandon interjected. Sprained, the lawyer corrected quietly. But the emotional trauma, Sarah almost laughed. From facing consequences for the first time in his life. Williams held up his hands. Please, everyone calm down. Marcus, I've reviewed the video. Brandon clearly initiated physical contact. Sarah's response was measured and appropriate. Appropriate, Marcus's voice dropped dangerously. She humiliated my son. Do you know what this is doing to his reputation, his football prospects, his future? Your son did that himself when he chose to assault a teacher. The lawyer leaned forward. Miss Mitchell, we're prepared to offer a solution. You submit a letter stating this was a misunderstanding. No charges are filed on either side, and we make a substantial donation to your chosen charity. Everyone wins. Accept the truth, Sarah said. The truth. Marcus stood, towering over her. The truth is that this school runs on relationships, partnerships, understandings between reasonable people. You're new here. You don't understand how things work. I understand perfectly. You use money and influence to ensure your son never faces accountability. Well, I'm not for sale. Everything's for sale, Marcus said coldly. It's just a matter of currency. If not money, then perhaps job security references, future prospects. How far are you willing to take this, Miss Mitchell? Sarah thought about Madison's folder, about the girls who'd been silenced, about every student watching to see if integrity meant anything in the face of power. As far as necessary, she said. The meeting ended with threats of lawsuits and warnings about her future in education. Sarah left with her head high but her stomach churning. In the hallway, Madison waited. I heard raised voices, Madison said. Are you okay? I need to think, Sarah admitted. This is bigger than just Brandon now. It always was. The question is, what are you going to do about it? That evening, Sarah sat in her apartment with two paths before her. Accept the Hayes family's deal, keep her job, maintain the status quo, or fight, knowing she might lose everything. Her phone rang. Master Carlos again. Sarah, I heard you had difficult meeting. You want talk? Master, when you first started teaching, did you ever face something like this? Having to choose between what's safe and what's right. Carlos was quiet for a moment. When I came to America, many people said Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was fake, inferior. They wanted me to water down, make easy for Americans. I refuse. I teach real art, real discipline. Some students leave, some gyms fail, but the ones who stay, who learn properly, they change world, you understand? I think so. Good. Remember, Jiu-Jitsu is not about being strongest, is about using opponents' force against them. This Hayes family, they have much force, much aggression, but aggression without discipline is weakness. You use their force. You show truth. After hanging up, Sarah made her decision. She opened her laptop and began typing. To the Lincoln High School community and school board. Friday morning, the Academic Integrity Board meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock. But by 9 a.m., Sarah's letter had been shared hundreds of times. She'd included everything, the plagiarism, the assault, the attempted cover-up. She'd been careful with Madison's information, protecting the victims' identities while establishing a clear pattern of behavior. The response was immediate and explosive. #StandWithSarah began trending locally. Parents who'd been silent started speaking up. Former students shared their own stories about the Hayes family's influence. By noon, the parking lot was packed. Media, parents, students, community members. The quiet academic board meeting had transformed into a public reckoning. Sarah sat in her classroom, trying to focus on grading papers while the storm raged outside. Ashley brought her lunch and updates. 3 school board members have recused themselves due to conflicts of interest. The superintendent is driving down from Denver, and Sarah, Ashley's eyes sparkled, 7 more girls have come forward. Your courage gave them voice. At 1:45, Sarah walked toward the board meeting. The hallway was lined with students. Many she didn't even teach. As she passed, they began to applaud, not the mocking, slow clap of movies, but genuine appreciation. Some held signs, "Integrity matters. Teachers deserve safety." No more silence. Madison fell into step beside her. Whatever happens in there, you've already won. You showed us that standing up is possible. The boardroom was packed beyond capacity. Marcus Hayes sat in the front row, surrounded by lawyers. Brandon was notably absent, his lawyer claiming emotional distress prevented attendance. The board president, Dr. Patricia Winters, called for order. "We're here to address the academic integrity violation filed by Miss Sarah Mitchell against Brandon Hayes. However, given recent events, the scope has expanded." What followed was 4 hours of testimony, evidence, and heated debate. Sarah presented her case calmly, supported by video evidence and documentation. The Hayes lawyers attacked her credentials, her motives, her violent response. But then the other voices began. Madison, reading statements from assault victims. Ashley, detailing years of witnessed intimidation. Teachers who'd been too scared to speak before. Parents whose children had suffered under the Hayes reign of terror. Marcus Hayes grew redder with each testimony, his lawyers increasingly frantic in their objections, but the dam had broken. Truth, held back by fear and money for so long, flooded forth. When the board voted, it was unanimous. Brandon Hayes would face full academic consequences for plagiarism. The assault charges would be forwarded to law enforcement. A full investigation into the culture of intimidation at Lincoln High would begin immediately. Security escorted the Hayes family out as the room erupted in cheers. Sarah found herself surrounded by students, teachers, and parents, all wanting to thank her, to share their stories, to be part of the change. English at Lincoln High. Her classes would be packed. Her students eager to learn from someone who'd shown them that integrity wasn't just a vocabulary word, it was a way of life. The bullies had tried to drag her down. Instead, she'd lifted an entire community up with perfect technique.